The Medusa by Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio, normally just known as Caravaggio. One of the most famous and certainly one of the most gruesome and grisly of all the paintings in the Uffizi galleries. What does it show us? The head of the legendary Gorgon, Medusa, a monster who had the ability to turn anyone who looked at her in the eyes into stone. Instead of hair, she had snakes. But this is the moment of her death, the moment when she was killed by the hero Perseus. Caravaggio was famous for painting everything and everybody in his work from life, and he's certainly done just that here. We know from an inventory taken of the effects in his Roman studio that he possessed a concave mirror. And the head of the Medusa, if you look closely and compare it with other pictures of Caravaggio himself, turns out to be a self-portrait. I can imagine him in his Roman studio making faces in that mirror and trying to capture them as he painted this picture. The snakes have been identified as Roman river snakes, an edible delicacy in Caravaggio's time, purchasable from Roman fishmongers. So I like to think that he bought a wriggling mass of live river snakes and had them too in his studio. What a scene it must have been. Now, as you've gathered, Caravaggio was alive and working in Rome, but this picture is in Florence. How come? Well, I'll tell you how come. It was presented to the Medici family by Caravaggio's principal patron, Cardinal del Monte, the man who paid for Caravaggio's early training, bought most of his early works, and a man who was himself in the pay of the Medici, so he felt obliged to send a masterpiece by his young protege to the Medici family so that they could see what all the fuss was about. It's a very interesting picture because it's almost certainly the result of a kind of competition between one artist and another. We know from the historical record and from the writings of Giorgio Vasari, the very first art historian of the Renaissance, that the Medici already owned a painting of Perseus slaying the Medusa by none other than Leonardo da Vinci, painted on a shield of wood. It seems to me that Caravaggio's patron, Del Monte, told Caravaggio about that other picture, which sadly no longer survives, and encouraged Caravaggio to paint his own answer to it. Now, although the other picture is lost, I can say with some certainty that Caravaggio did better than Leonardo da Vinci, because Leonardo had the very bright idea of painting Medusa on a shield of wood, but in my opinion he didn't really see through to the full logic of that decision. We know that he painted an entire landscape in which Perseus slew Medusa on his shield of wood, but Caravaggio's gone one better, because this isn't just a painting. It's a kind of conceptual work of art, almost a performance piece. Why do I say that? Because you have to think back to the story of Perseus and Medusa. How did Perseus kill the fearsome Gorgon, whom you couldn't look at without turning to stone? Well, he got his shield and he polished it till it was as shiny as the rear view mirror of a car. And I don't know how he did this bit, but somehow or other he crept up backwards, walked backwards towards the Medusa, spying her in his polished shield. And as she looked up at him, perhaps wondering, what on earth is this chap doing, he cut her head off, using his shield as the mirror to guide his arm. Now, what Caravaggio has given you here is the image of Medusa looking at Perseus in astonishment at the moment of her death. As her death blood gurgles from her neck, she seems to scream, "How on earth did you do that? What trick have you played on me?" Absolutely brilliant. And if you look at the back of the painting, you can see two little fastening points where once upon a time a strap was fixed. In other words, this wasn't a picture intended to be hung on the wall of an art gallery. It was a picture that you were meant to place on your arm, so that as you wore it like a shield and held it up, you, the Medici prince, became yourself like Perseus, having killed the great monster. How brilliant, how absolutely brilliant. And we know that the Medici were thrilled with it. And we also know, I found it out while writing my book on Caravaggio, that originally this painting wasn't hung on the wall of the Uffizi galleries. It was actually hung on the arm of the great Duke, the Medici's suit of armour. So there you have it, the world's first performance art.